मानुषी संवाद में आप सबका स्वागत है. Welcome to the 28th June 2023 edition of Manushi Samvad. Well, friend, today we have with us my very special friend and a very special guest for all of you, namely Rajiv Malhotra. He doesn't need any introduction, but I certainly wanted to emphasize that we are old friends and have long innings together over many issues and a couple of decades. So, Rajiv ji, thank you very much for taking out the time on a day when you're not very well. And as you know, I waited till the hoopla was over of Modi's US visit. There was a lot of excitement, great photo ops, and it was made out to be a super successful visit. Now, I didn't comment on it while it was on because I wanted someone like you to analyze it for us, the pluses and the non pluses with regard to this visit. All yours.
Thank you for inviting me again, Madhu. I've always enjoyed our conversations. Uh, so, I want to discuss Modi's visit with three. I want to divide my comments into three topics. Each is a pair of opposites. So, the first pair of opposites is what is US posture towards India positively, and there is a lot in that, versus what is the US posture towards India negatively, and there is a lot in that also. You need to look at both these. That is one point, one pair of opposites. Second is what is US posture towards India from the Democratic Party versus what is US posture towards India from the Republican Party. That is also an important pair of opposites. And the third, which all this leads to, is what is US posture towards India versus what is US posture towards Modi. That is also two different things. So,
Very.
so these three things, if you understand, you will have a better insight into the whole Modi trip and the US-India relations than what I believe the commentators and the media and officials have led you to believe. Things are more complex. Things are also more exciting. There's a lot of opportunity. There's also a lot of threat and a lot of caution. But before I get into these three deep dives, I want to clear the space from all the hoopla, pageantry, tamasha. So let me first of all tell you that there have been at least 5 prime ministers of India who spoke before the joint Congress. You had Nehru, you had Narasimha Rao, you had Rajiv Gandhi. I don't think Indira Gandhi, I'm not sure. You had Manmohan Singh. You certainly had all of these. And so, sorry, not Rajiv Gandhi, but you certainly had, you had Rajiv Gandhi was there, Manmohan Singh was there, Narasimha Rao was there, and even Vajpayee spoke. So it's not something unique and original. As far as the tradition of standing ovations and clapping, whenever there's a foreign dignitary, they do that. You do that whether it's a Chinese dignitary, Japanese dignitary, Mexican president, whoever, they like to do that. That's the American way. They're very friendly people, very courteous people. They know when to be nice and so on. They don't spoil the decorum. So that pageantry should not deceive us into believing that this is the real thing. Also, this business about, a lot of people came for this dinner. They came dressed very nicely. If you go back and see the videos of Manmohan Singh's trip, you'll find exactly the same thing. There was Deepak Chopra with his wife introduced, what kind of fashionable clothes they're wearing and what kind of jewelry she has. There's, all these Fareed Zakaria with his wife, all the celebrities, limelight kind of people. Some pay their way in. Some give donations to the politicians to get their way in. Some are planted from the Indian side. Some are, there are all kind of quota of people that are brought in. So all of this hoopla for the media is very good, but it's not enough. It's good because because the आम आदमी feels very impressed by this कि हमारी इज्जत तो है ना, हमारी इज्जत है. But that's like, the British used to put the Raja on an elephant and give him the gun salute. And the The British would even come and speak a little bit in Hindi, and for a Hindu festival, they would give some donation, some grant to celebrate it. They would patronize Indian music. That pop cultural patronizing is the done thing in diplomacy. You should do that. Absolutely, you should do that. But what is the deeper policy implication? See, the Indians are mesmerized by two P's: pageantry, personality.
Mm.
But the real P that they should think about is policy.
Mm.
What are the policy implications? Okay. So, this is where I want to talk about the three deep dives. First
Mm.
is first is what are the positives towards India and what are the negatives towards India in the US posture? The positives have now crystallized. Previously, the positives were held back because of the US awe of China and a view of Pakistan as a great ally. The Pakistan as a great ally was sort of always in question, but because of the presence in Afghanistan and Pakistan providing the supply route and all that, and the air space to travel, there was indispensable as an ally. And so a lot of decades went by in this nonsense. Pakistan developed the bomb. It was told to Clinton that you should not give them the nuclear waiver, which is required. When the CIA says that somebody is doing this, you have to block them and put sanctions on them, unless the president says that there are strategic reasons for giving them a waiver. And Clinton gave them a waiver every single year. He was also mesmerized by Bhutto. Benazir Bhutto is really kind of in awe of her. So this business of American positive posture, was held back because of the Pakistan factor, and Pakistan is really good at PR in Washington, much better than Indians. And the second was the China. US was mesmerized, thinking that China is going to be the big hope for our future, because once they become rich and well educated and technologically sophisticated with our technology, then having educated them on economics and military and technology, they will also think of us, be like us in terms of democracy, in terms of values. This was a complete mistake, one of the biggest blunders in American foreign policy, thanks to Kissinger, Nixon, and those people, and 5 or 6 American presidents ever since. They all subscribed to it. In fact, it got more and more serious. In the Obama administration, it peaked with a huge love for China, depending on China. The more trouble we are in, the more we hug them, because they'll get us out of it. The more our economy is bad, the more they'll give us loans. They'll buy the treasuries, which actually
Mm.
more dependency. So this thing went on, and this love for China was actually justified at that time because we had succeeded in Japan. Japan's another country. We thought they're the same, not realizing that that's a Buddhist country, different values, a whole different worldview. China had gone through this Maoist revolution and kind of become very different. But in Japan, we had given them the money, the technology, built up their economy, and built and created a great ally. Japan is an ally. So why not China? So this was a logic always. Well, anyway, I don't want to get into the China situation. That's a whole separate discussion. But the fact of the matter is that this these two stumbling blocks that came in India's way collapsed. It's not that they love India, they also have love for India, but these two things collapsed. So now, who's going to look after India, U.S. interest in South Asia, and who's going to counter China? Well, India happens to have a lot of positives. Geography. India is very strategically located in the Indo-Pacific. Very important. Foot soldiers, potentially, the Pentagon keeps thinking that India is the only country that could supply 1 lakh, 2 lakh boots on the ground in a long drawn war with China. Now, India should not do that, but of course, there's this hope on the American side. If you look at the number of male population, which is what they need, between the age of 18 and 35, that is real the real backbone of any army, young men. If you look at that, India has a larger population of young males than all of NATO combined.
Hmm.
Now, this is a very big deal. See, they have the weapons, they have the money and all that. But what they are finding out in Ukraine is that the ground forces matter a lot. Ukrainians are tough fighters and all that, giving the Russians a hard time in many ways. But, there's only a limited supply. So they realize the importance of India as a potential for a large supply of soldiers, which I don't think India should go with. But that's what they're thinking. And then the third component is business, commerce, trade, market. So the three components are geography, India in India's favor, the large population that potentially could be a military supplier of labor. India is not a supplier of technology. It's not a supplier of weapons that the Americans have, but it could supply boots on the ground, foot soldiers, the tough fighters. And the third is the commercial interests. So these three bring the positive camp together like never before. So these are all things that have happened, and you can argue whether it would have happened if it were not Modi. Probably it would have still happened because
Hmm.
Manmohan Singh was also playing his cards in the same way. So that's the positive side of the American posture towards India. But there is a negative side. The negative side, now we go into the Republican and Democrat difference. From the Republican side, the Christian missionaries are very important to them. And the
Hmm.
negative side is they're always complaining that there are these laws against the evangelism, or something happened to some nuns, or some church burnt down, or whatever. I've talked to the US Commission on International Religious Freedom. I'm one of the only Hindus who's actually gone inside their office, sat there with the commissioners, talked to them, answered them, had nice conversation with them, but gave them my views. I don't think I think all these other people who criticize the US Commission have never really been there. They just cut and paste what they've heard in a report here and there. I've actually been there multiple times. So the US Commission cites sources in India they don't name. And these are generally, during the Republican era, they are generally Christian sources that keep reporting on this happened, that happened. Somebody in India reports it, and then all the NGOs have a mirror effect, and they cite it. And so, as far as Americans are concerned, it is newsworthy. They can report it as evidence, but it's not. So I have also argued with them that these are not evidences based on court hearings or verification, and you have to let your sources be cross-examined, which is the American way, but they don't want to. So that's the American side of the negative. US cannot, India cannot expect this particular negativity to go away, which does not exist with Israel. We keep drawing parallels that maybe we'll become like Israel. But Israel, the Christian right is Zionist. They are pro-Zionist because their religion is that way. Their religion is linked, whereas it is not so with India, with Hindu India or Muslim India or anything. So with the Republican side, there is a strong, clear negative side to India, a posture. From the Democratic side is Workism, which I have talked about a lot, and I don't want to repeat. But
Hmm.
in a nutshell, what is called the progressive wing, they call themselves the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, are fiercely anti-India. They are fiercely Islamized.
Hmm.
So the left wing got co-opted by the Muslims using Marxism to kind of let Islam come in the way, come inside the door. Whereas at the time of 9/11, Muslims were really not in favor. People, they were running for life because they were hounded, which is unfortunate. And Islamophobia was rampant. But they managed with alliance of the left to calm that down and take over a lot of power with the democratic left. So this alliance of left Islam then co-opted the blacks. With the Black Lives Matter movement, they were able to co-opt the blacks, and very skillfully done. Right under everything in the public. It's not like they're done secretly, but nobody bothered. So now this coalition is wokeism is very powerful, coming from Harvard, which I've written about. All the think tanks. Obama is very close to Harvard. He's a Harvard product, and they love him there, and he gets a lot of advice and uses the Harvard resources, the Harvard think tank. And by the way, all this is being funded. A lot of it is being funded by Indian billionaires. I've talked about that also.
Hmm.
So you see, This wokeism is the uh, Democrat Party's negative wing towards India. So I've talked about two things. First, there's a positive side posture towards India. There's a negative side, negative posture towards India. Then I've taken the negative posture and I've further compartmentalized into what the right wing think is negative, what the left wing think is negative. And so there is this dance going on. One must also differentiate the different parts of the United States in terms of the institutions. The Pentagon, the military, are now on the positive camp. They have been for a long time, wanting to befriend India. Some of it was India's reluctance, but with this Indo Pacific and other things, defense collaboration, and so on, the Pentagon is solidly on India's side. They are not interested so much in human rights, social justice type things. They're asked politically to go and raise it. So once in a while they raise it, but they want a good collaboration for defense. The State Department is on the other side because it's a
Hmm.
Democrat in power. So the State Department has all these, coming out with anti-India kind of thing because of social justice issues. Now, corporate America is on the positive side. If you're making a positive column and negative column, you will put in the positive column the Pentagon, military, and you will put the large corporates because they have business interests. They're looking at it that way. They have business interests in China. They're looking at it purely like that. So those are the positive type side. If you're looking at the negative camp, the strongest negative camp is academic Hinduphobia. We've written about it. The Harvards of the world, Stanford, Columbia, the various think tanks, the church, the all these Islamic groups, and the State Department is in that negative camp at this point in time. It was in the positive camp during the Trump era.
And media. And you forget media.
Yeah, media, the intellectual apparatus,
Hmm.
the think tanks, including media
Hmm.
and other private think tanks, academics, they are in the negative camp. So
Hmm.
I've discussed two things, two of the three items. First was the US positives towards India and the US negatives towards India. And then I've talked about the right wing American, left wing American dichotomy towards India. Now let's talk about, does US like India or does US like Modi? And this is a very important point.
Yeah, very
Certainly,
important.
certainly in the case of the Democrats, Modi is a kind of a positive, negative, mixed up. Both views are there, but they want India. They would prefer India without Modi rather than India with Modi. They would
Hmm.
prefer an India with some Congress guy or some Mamata Banerjee or somebody else that they can manipulate more easily, that is on their wavelength, especially with the Democrats in power. They would like the ruling parties, the government, to be more, wokist. They probably love this new. They do love this new. Uh, 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 the Supreme Court Chief Justice Chandrachud, because he's a Harvard product. He quotes Harvard all the time. He's connected with the wokist in America, and they've also planted a whole lot of their consultants, advisors, and their influencers within Niti Aayog, within ministries, and within corporate India. So you see, the problems I'm talking about that I've talked about in the Workism books are not just, these problems are not just in the media and something happened in BBC or Wall Street Journal or Washington Post, or they put out some negative on India. It's not just like that. These are deeply entrenched in the institutional framework of India, in the corporate sector, and of course, in the academic. A lot of these private universities like Ashoka and all that are full of this, and also in the government. So this is the structure of what's going on. I think uh, once you understand this structure, which I don't think any media clarified, I don't think any influencer clarified, I don't think any of these opinion wallahs clarified. They're more into what was the menu and कौन आया उसने उसको hug कर दिया. I mean, like, it's so low IQ for a great country like India not to have people who are capable of analyzing beneath the surface, reading between the lines, is a real disgrace. And this is because, the Foreign Service is also not very deep into thinking, into intellectual relations, international relations. They really don't have think tanks that can understand all this. So that's my overview statement, and I'll be happy to respond to your questions now.
Okay. First question is, beyond the hoopla and the photo ops, what did Modi gain? Some people believe that whatever he gained could have been done by some secretary to the government of India, that nothing path breaking happened. The others believe that this was a very important message to Pakistan as well as to China, and therefore his presence mattered a lot. What do you say to that?
Well, you see, let's look at what the concrete output is. I mean, there is this very important technology transfer with GE jet engines. Now, GE jet engine is important because India had its own jet engine technology R&D, which did not produce enough that India needs. So
Hmm.
there's a big gap in military with China because China has produced its own jet engine. China has reverse engineered, stolen the technology. Whatever they've done, they've gotten ahead. So they are now self-sufficient, more or less, in producing, aircraft or military aircraft, ships, all kind of avionics, also on par with the Americans, and this is bothering the Americans. So once the Chinese are self-sufficient, they will have a advantage of cost. They will scale it. They will supply this to Pakistan, and India having to buy all these very expensive from Britain or France or Russia or US will be not able to keep up, and India will lose the arms race eventually because China's got more money and the technology will be cheaper. So
Hmm.
India needs many such technology transfers, not just the one with GE for engines, but many other things. So this is a one of the technological breakthroughs for defense which is necessary.
Hmm.
But I would like to point out that the GE technology transfer is like 70-80% of the technology. The key items in this technology they have held back. So India will have to license it, uh, pay them royalty, and more than that, depend on them to keep supplying it.
Hmm.
Because without that, India cannot, the engine cannot function. So they are smart. They will keep some back. Now this can be reverse engineered if India really puts their mind to it. But India has not so far. Whereas the Indian engineers, software engineers, have been working in the heart, in the guts of the American establishment, in the financial industry, in all kind of industries, but they have not really put enough effort into reverse engineering and Indianizing these products and making them in India. They have not done that the way Chinese did that. Chinese had access to American know-how and they competed against them. Now, Indians have access to American know-how, but Indians are very loyal servants, very loyal. So we are not Vishwa Guru, but Vishwa Chela, Vishwa Kuli. I mean, people don't like these terms, but they are quite honestly very accurate.
Very apt.
We for a price we are renting our best brains out, and these brains then don't produce Indian technology, Indian patents, Indian intellectual property, but American. So that's
Hmm.
the way things are. So getting as a result of that, we need to every so often import technology, and that technology transfer is necessary for our survival. So this
Hmm.
is what the GE engine is about. This
Hmm.
business of that they will increase the number of H-1B visas and increase the number of consulates is sort of very routine among countries. When the population of the diaspora increases, you need more consulates. They need more consulates. We need more consulates. I mean, that's as minor as saying, okay, American Airlines will get more landing and Air India will get more landing. I mean, these are very nominal things. You don't need a big hoopla prime minister visit to achieve that. So I would say those are less important. So
Hmm.
the main one that I got through was that I looked at, considered to be significant, was this jet engine, which is one important deal. Now, I think another important thing in the resolutions is what was not said. India did manage to keep this whole social justice condemnation out, which is very important.
Hmm.
Sorry, lot of lot of American Democrats, congressmen, boycott. Some
Hmm.
boycott the proceedings very publicly.
Hmm.
Some protested, like Obama came out and right in the middle of the trip made all this kind of thing that India is harming Muslims and whatnot, and the India may break up into a Muslim India and Hindu India. He said all that. Some of them were open. A lot more came to the event. They did clap because Biden is there. He's a Democrat, and they need to give him bhav and all that. And the instructions were that you should come and be sporting, and they came, partially supporting and partially remaining silent. You'll watch, you'll watch these people. Sometimes they are joining their comrades, their fellow congressmen to applaud, and sometimes they're not. So, but the point is, despite this pressure, which was in the media that he should not be invited, this is bad for democracy, despite all these petitions and private pressure, India did manage to keep that negativity out of the official resolution, which was
Hmm.
not the case in previous times. In previous times, they would scold, and then India has to either apologize or respond or something like that. So that was, I think, a positive. So overall, I think I'm glad that Modi came. I think Modi has done a lot to raise India's stature in the world, and in partly utilizing the situations in the world to our advantage. The Ukraine war has positioned India as a good neutral power, neutral in both sides, and I'm glad they have this neutral policy. The Indo-Pacific strategic importance has positioned India. The economic crisis and over dependence on China becoming visible, and alternative supply chain being created, India has taken advantage of. So there are a lot of things that have fallen at the right place at the right time, and the Modi government has been taking advantage of it, which is very good. I must say that is very good. Where they are short,
Yeah.
where they are short is this social justice issue is not something you can just keep quiet and it'll go away. The official
Hmm.
position of India from the ministry, from the external affairs people, consulate people, people in Delhi, all these, is that it is none of their business. Why are they interfering? We will just keep quiet. We don't have to respond. And when it gets very bad, like when there's an attack or when things get really bad, then we will tell them that they are wrong. So it's kind of a defensive posture. It is not proactive. You know, Jay Shankar is to be credited for responding strongly every time there is such an attack. But Jay Shankar should be asked, are you able to predict the next attack? Are you, because these are not attacks of some lunatic individual that could not be predicted. These are networks. These are important networks. They're global networks. Where is your surveillance? Are you able to anticipate and predict what they're up to? Do you know who these people are? Who funds them? What is the ecosystem? Not one or two personalities here and there, but these are very large ecosystems with lot of many organizations, individuals, much money flowing around here and there, and you cannot pinpoint just to one person. So this whole conspiracy called Breaking India, which is, I've talked about for the last 25 years, and which is getting worse and worse, needs a strategic response. India needs to put out its own papers, its own white papers, and have its own conferences and have its own petitions on social justice as we see it. I mean, we do have an Indian point of view theoretically on social justice, what constitutes social justice. We do have some data on India's progress in the area of social justice. We do have data on comparison with China, with Pakistan, with United States, with Europe on matters of social justice and minorities and things like that. We've never taken that offensive. So I think that that is the one area where I have wanted to participate more, but the government has not given any help.
Two things, Rajiv. One, um, this social justice issue that you talked about has two components. One is global defamation of India, so that let's say tomorrow, if this Ghazwa Hind mission starts materializing and there's large scale slaughter of Hindus, there'll be none to speak for us. They'll say, oh, they're bad people, they're fascists, and fascists need to be put down. Now, the point that I'm making is this. Number one, doesn't America, whether conservative or democratic America, don't they recognize the threat from Islam, or are they also easily purchasable that they are willing to make a deal with the devil against an India which has never done them any harm? I mean, we pose no threat unlike China. Even if we become a leading technological power, for example, India doesn't have that history or DNA to go and threaten America with missiles and nuclear bombs, all that. Why, in their self interest, can't they understand that India's contribution is enormous to America's economy? Even as coolies, Indians are doing a great job, and yet they don't support us when it comes to threat of Islamization and demographic change. Are they not aware that there are many mini Pakistans in India, that the demography is changing dramatically, and Hindus are fleeing all those areas where Islam or even Christianity, as in Nagaland, or northeastern states, Hindus have to flee. Manipur, that's what's happening. The Maithais are under attack by cookies or Christians. And how can they not know it? And
So,
India is
so,
doing nothing, and Modi remains quiet in favor of Islam,
so
not in
I'll tell
favor of
you.
Hindu.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So let's separate why Modi is quiet, because that may have to do with domestic politics and elections and whatnot. Let's look at US. So in US, the people who are familiar with India beneath the surface tend to be those who are studying India for the wrong reasons. They're studying India because they're Hindu phobic and because they're part of the Breaking India forces. So the people who are really knowledgeable as scholars, as anthropologists, social scientists, political activists, whatever, are all part of the social justice gang. And while it is against the American interest long term, and that is why I have a whole theme called Breaking America. I've been talking about breaking America to Americans and writing about it. And my book Snakes in the Ganga has a whole section on it, on breaking America.
Yeah.
So while this is going on, the people who listen to me, who are very interested, are the anti-wokists. There are anti-wokists. There are anti-wokists from the business side, all the way from Elon Musk type people. There are people. There are people who are in the media. Many of them. There are many individual activists. There are people in the Republican Party. Uh, DeSantis, a Republican candidate, whether you like other policies or not, he's anti-wokist. So you do have strong anti-wokism also. The fight is now in terms of wokeism. That is the Indians must understand. There are wokist and anti-wokist forces around the world, and we have to align ourselves according to this new alignment. Understand the vocabulary, the terminology, who is who, who's funding, and that is why I wrote this Breaking India 2.0 book, the new one, to educate Indians to join this new intellectual warfare, intellectual Kurukshetra, based on where things are today, and not go on harping on how things were a dozen years ago. That is old Breaking India. So, in the new Breaking India context, what what is happening is the wokists have consolidated their hold on the education system, universities, lot of municipalities, like in California and Seattle. They've got all these laws coming. It's harming Indians also. A lot of, you see, this there's a movement called ESG,
Hmm.
environment, society, governance. The society part of it, you zoom in, and it's DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion.
Hmm.
They give certificates to people who get employed in the HR departments of big companies. And once their person gets involved and invited, gets installed, he brings in a lot of others like him. And before you know it, the whole department of HR in Microsoft and in Google and in Apple and in Amazon and in all these corporate America, in Chase Manhattan Bank, all these kind of places are highly wokist. So when the HR department is there, it starts bringing out policies or towards consumers, towards your advertising, messaging, towards hiring people. So this woke corporate wokeism is a very big export from the academic wokeism into the corporate world. And this international social justice agenda is a successful export again from the export from the academic wokeism into political. So wokeism is like a cancer that has spread across multiple domains within America. And so wokeism blinds you because you don't even allow free speech. You practice cancel culture. You have to cancel those who disagree with you because they are the dominant people, they are the oppressors. You have to cancel them. It's against meritocracy because meritocracy is also going to continue and perpetuate oppression. So it is against the fundamental structures of society that make countries great, that make countries successful. So here's what I'm predicting. I'm predicting that democracies around the world are being undermined by wokeism, including United States, Britain, India. I was in Britain just 2 weeks ago, and I gave a talk in the Parliament and Nehru centers and various places. So these are British problems also. All democracies are vulnerable to internal disruption by exploiting the minorities of those countries in the name of wokeism. And the countries that are stronger as a result are the non democracies like China. Nobody is going to go wokist in China, or Saudi Arabia, or Iran, or North Korea, Russia for that matter. Why Putin is hated partly is because he exterminates these wokists. So you're going to see the world divided into wokist and anti-wokist. And India is really in the crosshair because the largest democracy, large number of population. If you could break up India and turn it into wokist, then the whole wokist side of the Kurukshetra would win because they would have this giant wokist country. They would love to break up India into a bunch of fighting, rival, warring groups.
What do they gain? Rajiv, what do they gain?
What the
Chaos in the world
No, no, but I'm
is,
saying I'm saying the Islamic forces gain.
oh, Islamic forces
Okay,
gain, not,
the Chinese forces gain. The left
yes.
the leftists get the revolution because rather than economic class struggle, now it is wokeism is a new grouping of
What about
people.
America?
So America,
What do they
because
gain?
America, to the extent that a large part of the American thinking elite have become wokists, feel that this is the ideology for the future. I mean, this is the saddest thing that has
Are they
happened in the
so
world.
brainless?
No, because they're not brainless. Partly it is guilt. Partly it is guilt. Partly it is that they feel guilt towards one group. They don't feel guilt towards Muslims. They feel guilt towards
Not
blacks.
towards us,
No, no,
not towards
no, no.
Hindus.
But I'm trying to explain the American psyche. They feel guilt towards blacks, which is justified. They should have that guilt. But that has been expanded. They brought in the Muslims alongside as part of the group called the wokists. So now there is also pushback. They can't criticize Islam. They'll be called Islamophobic. There's this whole stigma that if you criticize Islam, you'll be called Islamophobic, and there's all these
Mhm.
laws against you. So the Muslim, since 9/11, the Muslim success in infiltrating the United States think tanks and intellectual machinery, alongside the blacks and the leftists, creating a new alliance of all these three, is a major, major event in world history that needs to be noticed because this has got consequences all over the world. When I've been talking about these things for the last 5-6 years, people are saying, अरे ये तो अमेरिका में बात हो रही है, हमारे को इसमें क्या पता? अरे भैया तुम्हारा तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट चीफ जस्टिस भी वो को बन गया. So this is a worldwide cancer, even though the American it's a made in America. This is America's leading ideological export today is wokeism. It used to be democracy, it used to be free thinking, innovation, all this kind of stuff. But the leading American export today is wokeism, which is kind of it's very sad and very strange that America of all countries would go wokist because America became great through innovation, and innovation requires free thinking, free speech, meritocracy, all the things that wokeism doesn't like. Wokeism doesn't even like capitalism. And the strange thing is some of the capitalists have become wokists. So
Yeah,
this is a paradox. The paradox of wokeism is what you have to get into and crack it. Crack it for your own clarity and also crack it in terms of having policies to counter it.
two questions. One, this caste issue that has become very big in America and also now in other European countries, they're following suit. does it not present a real threat for Hindus
Yes.
living in these countries? Number one. Number two, and I want you to elaborate. I mean, is it just a minor threat or is it a very big threat? Because today, I find Hindus working in America become so timid. Not that they were ever very courageous, they're successful, but they don't have intellectual courage. But today, timidity levels are frightening. Second is, you said only those countries which have not adopted this fraudulent version of democracy. I consider it one of the biggest frauds on humanity. They are the only ones escaping Workism. They're the only ones escaping Islam. They're the only ones who are escaping even Christian missionary conversions. Should India then not dispense with this fraud called democracy because it's become a millstone round our neck?
So democracy, that's a discussion on India's future, India's democracy, too many elections, India's constitution being mostly 75-80% of Indian constitution was copied from this 1935 document the British made,
31.
and we are
35.
very proud of it. But
Yeah,
it's a colonial. The colonizers created this thing structure,
yeah.
gave it to us, and we tweaked it 20%, put some Sanskrit words here and there, and made it Indianized, and we're very proud of it. So this is very ridiculous. Indians should talk about it. We should decolonize the constitution. Start with the constitution. Now, if you remember, when I launched the book Varna Jati Caste, you and Kapil Kapoor were the main speakers, and I asked the question: why is there no Vedic social science going on,
Yeah.
starting with a constitutional framework, a draft? You know, it's one thing to keep putting out fires. Ke wo log
Yeah.
we are a fire extinguisher, fire department. We put out this fire, we put out that fire. But we need to have a team of people who are really immersed in the Vedic thought, who understand the concept of Rashtra and all our idea of social justice, come up with a structure and say, let's debate it. It'll take a few years of debates and conferences to give it the gravitas, give it the momentum, put it out and say, we would like this as our constitution. So this process has not even started. And I was surprised when Kapil Kapoor actually defended the position that we don't need it, we don't have it, we are practicing it for thousands of years. Why do we need to codify it and all this nonsense? So when the C, and he's a dear friend of mine, I owe him a lot. He's a mentor friend of mine, guides me a lot. But what I'm trying to say is that even those who are the people that we go to and look up to for advice and leadership in these kind of things are not working on this.
I know, but I'm talking about dispensing, firstly, the caste issue. Um, if anybody has real interest in junking caste, because it's not our category, in the way it's defined, the word itself, I think India could very easily take the lead in this by saying, yeah, let's junk caste, take it out of the constitution. No reservations based on caste, because that's what keeping caste alive. We could easily get rid of a lot of garbage in our constitution as well as in our policies, so called affirmative action policies, by saying, yes, we are banishing caste, and the constitution will do away with it, and so will government policies, will not recognize anything that brings in caste into play. Why is India not taking that kind? And as far as jati or varna is concerned, well, varna is today in some ways redundant because people have taken occupations far away from their original varna, dharma, or jati. So, what is left? People marrying within a certain group that they prefer or not prefer, which doesn't bother anybody, right? Why is it that India remains timid? And Modi ji, for example, did not address this issue that Hindu Americans are feeling extremely uneasy with what should be called Hindu phobia, systematic demonization of Hindu communities by your universities. Why should this not have been on the agenda, especially after your book? where there is plentiful evidence of what the American universities are doing. Why should this not have been on his
Yeah, so
agenda?
this is my problem with Jay Shankar and with the Ministry of Culture. They have not taken the offensive and put these issues on the table. In fact, the NEP has opened the doors to bringing these American universities into India, setting up there.
Yeah, ridiculous. We did a program on that after they did that, and I think you were part of it. Why would they do that? I mean, a sensible approach would be, if you continue like this, we will not allow Indian students to go study in America. We will say they're blacklisted, no jobs for those with American
You
degrees.
know, when
Because,
Chinese support their students to come to USA and they have a large number, there is a guideline on what kind of courses you can take and what kind of courses
yeah,
you're not allowed to take.
yes,
Even on your with your own expense. Like say Chinese government sends somebody for engineering and he's allowed to take certain courses. They've looked at the curriculum, the syllabus, the university, and they said, okay, it's fine. He cannot even take a course on history or something else about China, even at his own expense, because he has to get it cleared. So you see, there is a certain problem with too much in the name of democracy and freedom. We are actually giving other people rights over us.
this is not democracy and freedom, it's brainlessness.
Yeah.
This is servility, brainlessness. There are some, as a reply to the reporter's question, Modi should have mentioned how radical Islam is on the rise in India and said it's Kafirs who need protection. But Modi ji says Islam is about peace. Allah ke 99 names, they're all about compassion, love, peace. Kaise? I mean, he calls it the religion of peace. Kaise kahenge Modi ji? Bataiye. What do we expect from Modi
So
ji?
you know the how India needs to manage the religion of peace domestically needs to be sorted out,
Yeah.
because with such a large population, and of course Muslims are important people. Most Muslims I've talked to are not radicalized, and most of them on a personal level they just want to be respected and practice their stuff, but they rely on the mullah and the imam to give them guidance in their Friday prayer on political and social issues. So they blindly go with whatever the mullah tells them. So there is a whole re-engineering of mullahs needed, or re-education of mullahs
No,
needed.
but why not Ghar Wapsi as an official policy?
Okay, if you
Ghar
tell.
Wapsi. That's the only way. You see, because if the numbers keep increasing, the moment they are 30, 40, 50%, we are finished. That's the end of India as we know it. Civilizational Bharat is over if they keep increasing in their demographic balance is disturbed against Hindus.
So this is a whole question of this is beyond the U.S. policy and the Modi visit. This is a very big issue, and if you want to do a conference on this in Delhi, by the way, I'm in India in the first 3 weeks of September.
Okay.
And so if you want to organize something, we can think about it. If you take the lead and organize it, I'll be happy to participate.
Okay, let's discuss it
Yeah,
as a separate issue.
yeah. It's
I'd
just
love
that
to.
it's just that I have a throat issue right now. I'm fighting the virus, and I have a medical appointment to leave for in a little while. But I
Okay,
really enjoyed talking. What I wanted was to get out things that are of urgency, because there is a time sensitivity. Soon after the visit of Modi, people have interest. They need to know these things. And
yeah.
before it gets very cold and all that, people need to know this point of view that I've just expressed myself.
No, and you've been very balanced.
Yeah,
I really like the manner in which you
yeah.
balanced everything and it's fact driven. Now, Modi is a bit obsessed with foreign validation. He royally ignores his supporters in India and tries to woo and charm foreign leaders.
Now that is true. We've known that from the beginning. I mean, that's true. What can you say?
That personality disorder we can do nothing about. And it's not likely that we'll get another Lal Bahadur Shastri in the near future, who was rather above it, it was
Right,
not narcissistic.
right,
But too many leaders today are,
right.
and that is a problem.
That's a problem.
That it's a serious problem.
Yeah,
Now, Obama, even when he came to India, he said some nasty things in our parliament. We
right,
should have snapped him right then.
right,
We should have responded. Nobody did.
Right.
Everybody thought it was a charming, huggy affair with Modi, and Modi ji calling him Barack and doing julabazi with him. Why are our leaders so satisfied with optics?
No, but there is
With
also
optics?
this deep inferiority complex of the vis-a-vis the white people. I mean, right now you see that uh, the moment year or two another white guy comes up and becomes very pro-Hindu, and then he's greeted all over the place. He's celebrated as the latest champion and hero, even though 90% of what he's saying I've said and many others you have said, he's recycling our knowledge. And now there's one I won't name, but he's in the UK right now, and he's coming to USA to see me also. The thing is that we are in. There's this awe. There was this Renee something who lives right here in Princeton. These are people who are nothing in their own country, in their own career. You see, a lot of the people who became big shots in the East India Company were actually good for nothing in their own in England. They
Yeah.
would be sent there as scoundrels, as gundas and ruffians and useless fellows who done. The people who were bright scholars would be sent to Oxford, and they would run some big thing, become a big shot in Britain. The younger brother or the person in the family who was good for nothing would be sent to India, and then he would come back very rich, hugely rich, become some big lord or something, and he would be treated in India like he's some real devta. So this awe of the white guy, white men and women, is a very established, entrenched thing, complex among our people, and it reflects inferiority complex, lack of self-esteem, and these are not easily cured.
Um,
This is where China is different from us.
that's because they were never ruled by the white man.
They were never ruled, yeah, for there was never
Anybody who's been directly ruled by the white man, Bhutan is different because they were never ruled by the white man.
right,
Even Thailand is different because
right,
they were not directly ruled by the white man.
right,
Wherever the white man set foot, they produce self hating natives,
right,
wherever they did that.
right,
And they broke down self esteem
right,
completely. I mean,
right.
Native Americans are a prime example.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
done to them?
yeah.
So, but
So,
mm,
Madhu,
yeah,
should we continue?
yeah,
Madhu,
you're concluding comments, and
yeah,
you have to go for your
yeah.
appointment
So
with the
first, I want to
doctor.
thank Madhu for, and to all the listeners. I made, in summary, I made a comment that U.S.-India relations and Modi's visit should be seen in the context of remove the hoopla aside, the pageantry aside, look at the deep issues of policy, look at the positives from the U.S. point of view, and look at the negatives from U.S. point of view, both of them. Look at the negatives point of view from the Republican side, which is different, more Christian oriented, and the Democratic side, more leftist and Islam oriented. They're different. And then learn to separate their posture towards India and their posture towards Modi. Do they really want India? Do they really want Modi? Do they want both? Would they rather have India without Modi? You see, these are important issues that I have put on the table with both points of view, with both sides to balance them out. And I would
Thank
love.
you, Raj.
I'm
Yeah,
coming. I'm coming to India in September, and look forward to some exciting engagements when I'm there. Thank you so much for
I,
having me.
I look forward to meeting you soon. And let's hope we can plan something together for
Let's do that.
the first week of September.
Thank
Good.
you very much. Namaste.
Look forward.
Namaste.
Okay, viewers, thank you for staying with us. Please do like, share, and subscribe to this channel, especially this program, because you will learn the art of balanced analysis, balanced review of important things where there's too much fog created by excessive hoopla. So, thank you, Rajiv, for clearing the fog, putting things in perspective. Shubh Ratri, Vande Mataram.
Vande Mataram. Thank you very much.